just sit still from wherever you are, even if you can be like that, Anne, and bring yourself into a prayerful state. Join the palms together. Connect to your breath. Yogena chittasya parena vacham malam sharirasya chavaidhyakena yopa karotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram shankachakra siddharinam Sahasra Shirsam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Harihi Om. Bow the head down, drop the hands, raise the face, open the eyes. So we're looking at the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and we left off at number 37. So just a quick thing to say that this was written by a person, right? The Bhagavad Gita is part of a larger epic poem called the Mahabharata, the longest written epic poem that we know of, and that story is basically the story of how a war came about. And right in the middle of it, we have the Bhagavad Gita, and it was written by someone. It's accredited to a sage called Vyasa. Now, the thing of it is, if we think of it, okay, so someone made the Gita up, right? That's just kind of how I'm thinking about it. Someone envisaged it, and they wanted to teach Vedanta. They wanted to teach the esoteric teachings of the Hindus, the subtle teachings, the teachings that lead to self-knowledge and liberation from suffering. So it was a way of teaching Vedanta through his story. So all of the teachings of Vedanta are encapsulated within the story of the Bhagavad Gita. So I think we have to take it in that context. So rather than thinking that it's a story about whether we should fight a war or whether wars are good or bad, it's not really about that. That's just the context that it's in. So it's really about what is the truth about who I am? What is the truth about what the world is? And what am I going to do about it? So that's really what the Gita is trying to do. So I hope that's clear. So we're going to go to 37. And, we're still in chapter 2. That chapter 2 is the subject of chapter 2 is the knowledge of the self, Jnana Yoga. So Arjuna basically asked Krishna, what do I do? Do I fight this war? I don't want to fight the war. I want to run away. I want to go and be a monk in a cave, give up the kingdom, give up all my responsibilities. And he asked for Krishna's counsel. So Krishna starts by giving him basic stuff like, he appeals to his material side and saying, well, you're going to lose face, you're going to be disgraced, people call you a coward, you'll be dishonored, you'll lose your reputation. And then he goes on further to explain to him the really take-home message of the Bhagavad Gita. It is, what is the nature of the self? What we truly are. So that's the whole second chapter's about that. So right now in 37, he's talking about killing people, right, in the battle. And he says in 37, either having been slain, he's talking about, if you do the work, if you go out and you do the job and you fight, what's going to be the effect of fighting? Well, you know, he's fighting because it's his duty. He's fighting because it kind of has to be done. It can't be avoided right now. And it's his job. And it's a moral and ethical thing to do. It's not a question here of ethics. Like, the ethical thing is not to fight the war. That might be how we think, but really in this context, it is not. And that's not even the subject, actually. So Arjuna's job is to fight. So Krishna is telling him, so he says, look, fight. Either having been slain, you shall attain heaven, or having conquered, you shall enjoy the earth. Therefore, stand up, Arjuna, resolved to fight. So Krishna is really appealing to his material side. You're going to get something, right? If you die, you go to heaven. Now, in this structure of cosmos, the way it's looked at is there are heavens. There's 7 heavens and there's 7 hells, right? All of which result in rebirth. So going to heaven doesn't mean that you're going to stay in heaven forever and enjoy all of these things. It just means it's another part of the karmic cycle. So good action has good result. If you do good ethical actions in your life, you get punya, good results. And those punyas result in good effects, which can be good rebirth. You know, you're born, you're healthy, you live in a good household, you're in a good environment, good things happen to you in your life is easy, you may be wealthy, etc., famous, all that stuff. But at some stage, the effects of the good actions that you've done and the karma that has resulted will get exhausted. And once that karma is exhausted, the old karmas have to come back up. And then you get another birth, and you don't know what the next one's going to be and what kind of karmas are going to come up and create experiences for you. So one of the things can happen is through good action, we gain punya, we go to the heaven. Now, after that's been exhausted, you're going to get reincarnated again, and other karma will be activated from previous lives, previous actions in other lives. Could be lives that you had gazillions of years ago in other forms. It can be actions, karma that's been accrued in this lifetime through your actions. So it's not a guarantee, but Krishna is appealing to that side of him, because a lot of, when you look at religion and you look at the religion of the ancient Indians, it was basically broken up into 2 sections. One was religious practices for gaining material benefit. So I'll do these practices and I will gain wealth, health, fame. My kids will be able to go to university. I'll go to heaven. So you get stuff. So there's practices to get stuff. And then there's the other practices, which are Vedanta, which is explained in the Upanishads, which is the esoteric practices and the knowledge, true knowledge of, it's called moksha tradition, which means liberation from suffering. So the knowledge of the self. So this is what religions offer us. Mostly we see only the materialistic side of religion, which is, you know, I want to be born in heaven. I want stuff. I pray to God, give me this, give me that, give me health. Don't let me die. And then there's the other side, which has a completely different approach, which is what Krishna's going to teach and is teaching. That so he's appealing to that materialistic side. So you'll go to heaven, or if you win, you're going to enjoy the fruits of your work. You know, you're going to be famous. You'll get the kingdom. You know, you'll conquer the bad guys. All these material results. He's appealing to that side of him. Therefore, stand up and fight. And the next one, 38, having pleasure, holding pleasure and pain to be alike, likewise gain and loss, victory and defeat, thus engage in battle. Thus you will not incur evil. It's a really good one to look at. When you look at what he says, holding pleasure and pain to be alike, right? So in other words, if we don't do that, if you throw it the other way around, if you say, I only want pleasure, all my actions are going to be out there trying to satisfy my senses and my pleasure. And by that, it doesn't mean the pure hedonistic life. It can be that all our actions are all about satisfying me as a person. You know, I want to go to work. I want money so I can buy this and I can have that. I want the good life. I want the good life for my family. It's all about something. I'm doing things so I get the pleasure of the benefit from it. And the other side of it is, I don't want to do that. It's too painful. I'll suffer. I'm not going to do those kinds of actions. So our actions are usually driven by in those two directions. When you really look at how we act in life, they're driven by the desire for pleasure or the attempt to get away from anything causes unhappiness and suffering. Now, what Krishna is saying here is, if you do act in that way, you're going to incur evil. Now, that's a funny translation, but what he's basically saying is that the results of actions based on desire or aversion result in karma. Results in the effects of karma. Now, these effects, as I said before, can be good or bad. You do good things, you get good effects. You do bad things, you get bad effects. Both result in effects. Both result in a chain reaction that can occur in this life or in the next life, or future lives. So any action bound on those principles have these effects. So he's saying, don't act because of that. There's another way to act. Rather than acting because I want the pleasurable effect, or I don't want the unpleasurable effect of the action, there's another way. So he's saying, also gain and loss, victory and defeat. So what he's saying is, don't fight the battle with the idea that I must win this battle and I will get the good effect of winning the battle, or I don't want to lose the battle because I won't get the effects I want. And in fact, I may suffer. I may have some suffering from losing. So if you look at that, that's another way that you can approach this battle that he has to go into. I want to win. I want the rewards of winning. I don't want to lose. I don't want the effects of losing. So these are all material results that occur in the material world. You know, the benefits of winning, they're all material, and the non-benefit of losing, that's also material. And so to win or lose, so don't make that your motivation to act, and don't make the motivation to act to be pleasure and pain. Engage in battle. Well, what does that mean? You know, because when you think about it, that was his big motivation for going into battle. I want to go into the battle because I want to get the kingdom. I want to gain, you know, respect, and I want all these benefits from the action that I'm going to do. Now, Krishna's just thrown a big wrench in that and said, just don't act in that way. Don't have that as your motivation. And this forms the foundation for chapter 3, which is called Karma Yoga. How should one act and why? And we'll get to that later on. So is there any question regarding that? It's a very important thing.
It's being indifferent to pleasure, pain, for instance.
No, it's not being indifferent, because it doesn't mean that we become like a zombie, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can go out in life. Okay, so we'll jump ahead and we'll go act in Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means, Karma Yoga is like this. Our minds are very disturbed. You know, we try to sit quietly, practice pranayama, or we try to meditate, or even practice asana, just to be still. The mind is always being affected in some way by thoughts or emotions or memories, or distracted, can't hold the mind still. So the meditation is really just an exercise in struggling with the mind and the emotions. So why does that occur? So that occurs because the mind is carrying over the effects of our actions that we've done. So we may, in a past life, we may have committed a murder, for instance, done some horrible thing. Imagine Hitler. Imagine Hitler's next incarnations. So just think of it, you know, somewhere along the line, he's going to come back as a human being. And those imprints from those previous actions are still there. So he will have a long way to go till he gets to self-realization. He will eventually. We all get there eventually. But we have to endure a lot. Now, so this is called the impurities of the mind. So how do these impurities come about? They come about because we go out in our everyday life and we experience pleasure or we experience pain. Now, that's not wrong. Doesn't mean that you drink a cup of tea, you know, you got a cup of tea, you drink it. You taste it, tastes good. You can feel immediately, I like it, or I dislike it. That comes up. The like and dislike is the problem, not the pleasure. It's not that you should isolate yourself from pleasure. That's not the case. The problem comes when the like and dislike is triggered by the pleasure or the pain. So this is the level at which the mental impurities occur. And this is why asana and pranayama are so useful, because they start to give you a kind of space in your mind through the attention to the breath and the body and the thought processes that we teach, so that these distractions of like and dislike arising out of pleasure and pain are viewed in a way that they no longer take a hold upon us. So you're looking for a state of neutrality. So you go out in life doing what is necessary, doing what is right, doing what's right in front of you. So this is how one spiritualizes our everyday life. Now, you might say, what are you talking about? I'm a mother, I might have children, or I have a very busy job. You know, how can I have spirituality? I don't have any time for spirituality. How can I purify my mind? I'm too busy. I'm a doctor or something. We're all like that. We're all householders. We all have responsibilities. We all have things right in front of us every day. Now, Arjuna was in that situation. He had something right in front of him that he had to do. And he didn't realize that that could be done in a way that was a spiritual practice that would purify his mind. So we're the same. The battle that Arjuna is going to face, Arjuna is us. And the battle is our life. And battle's a hard word, I know, but really we are, in a way, in a battle. With our life is difficult. We have to navigate it. We have to, in a way, we have to fight against our negative tendencies and things that aren't good for us and so on. So we are, in a way, in a battle. So what the teaching is going to get to later on is that we have to make our everyday life what's right in front of us, the things we have to do, doing the dishes, looking after the kids, you know, teaching a yoga class, going to work. Make those spiritual actions that will purify the mind. So that's going to come later in the teaching in Karma Yoga. It's really great and has profound effects on your equanimity and on very, very obvious effects on how you feel about your life and how you feel about the world around you. It's profound. And but I don't want to go too far ahead yet. So the idea here, the question was, should one be indifferent to pleasure? Indifferent in the sense that the pleasure is experienced, but the indifference comes about at the level of the desire, whether or not the desire that may arise out of that pleasure that creates a longing. Now, this longing, the two great problems, regrets and the what ifs. If only I had done this, and what if I did that? So we're either in the past or we're in the future. So the longings that are come out from the experience of pleasures disturb our present equanimity. So what a desire is, it's something that has been created out of a pleasure experience that comes up at a time that is inappropriate. So we may be, for instance, you may be starting your pranayama, and suddenly a very strong desire will come up. I have to get up and check my email. Or a thought will come up about, I wish I had this. These desires come up at times that are very, very inappropriate, because we don't find the pleasure, the present moment enough. We always find we need something more than what we have right now. The present is never enough. I don't feel fulfilled. If only I had this. So we act. That becomes why we act, to satisfy that desire. So the answer to the question is not, pleasure is not a problem. Pain is not a problem. It's the desire or the aversion that's created by that experience that we have to work with. Okay. No.
Well, maybe the word indifferent, like, because you also use the word neutral. So it's just that
Neutrality.
to not go with whatever reactions. I guess try not to.
Yeah.
Go with
Yeah.
reactions that
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah. So one of the things is, one of the things you learn in yoga is to be very breath associated. And even people tell you, psychologists will tell you, if you find yourself losing your temper, count to 20, and that even just to have the equanimity to go, okay, I've got to count to 20, that takes quite a lot of work. So also to be breath conscious. So, as a yoga practitioner over time, you become quite conscious of how the breath is responding to every situation. And that becomes a tremendous tool, so that rather than instantly being pulled by pleasure, pain situations or whatever's in front of you start to trigger reactions, you can somewhat gain a little bit of equanimity before you spring into action. But there's a very small window, because the mind is so conditioned. So if you really watch closely how you're responding to things, to stimulus and experiences around you, you'll see that you really don't have much control over it. You're so conditioned that you immediately respond to any situation. But there is a window where you can make a choice. I can act that way, or I can act that way. I can respond like this, or I can respond like that. But it's a small window, because the power of these desires and conditionings and aversions are so strong that they will act before you really realize it. So this is why asana and pranayama is such a great friend to us, because it does give us the practice of, okay, for this period of time, I'm not responding to the desire and the aversion complex, and I'm instead building breath, body, mind, thought process association, and I will hold myself steady like that for the duration of the practice. So I see it all the time in people who have developed a long-term yoga practice, and people report it back to me too, students who say, I came to yoga for this reason, I had a backache, but now I find also I'm much more at peace. I don't get angry so much anymore. My life is better. I'm not as restless. So this is a result of the practices. So this equanimity is an aspiration, but it has to have something behind it. You have to have practices that enable you to achieve it. Okay. So So then he says 39, this insight is wisdom, as declared in the theory of Sankhya. Now here it is applied in arduous practice. Yoked with this determination, Arjuna, you shall rid yourself of the bondage of karma. So that's a very rich sloka. This insight is wisdom. So, this understanding, he's saying, look, if you understand that actions that aren't based in the outcome, that's really saying, I act only because I want the outcome of the action. So he's saying, if you realize that there's another way to act and it's going to have much, much better effect, and this other way to act is to do what's in front of you, do it with your whole heart, and do it with the intention that you're purifying the mind. So your everyday actions in life, your everyday responsibilities start to become a spiritual practice. And he says, if you realize that, this is deep insight and it's wisdom. And he says it was declared in the theory of Samkhya. So some of you may have seen on the website, there's a talk on Samkhya philosophy, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest philosophy of ancient India. And it's that which is based Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, where Patanjali talks about the 8 limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dana, dhyana, samadhi. So the 8-fold path of yoga, very similar to Buddhism. And Patanjali's is the yoga of meditation, of concentration, of stilling the mind. So Patanjali defines yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations occurring in the stuff of the mind. So this is a deeply meditative practice, a practice of basically shutting the mind down with one term and one-minded concentration. Very difficult. And Patanjali lays out a scheme of how to do it. And he starts with actions, yamas and niyamas, discipline of action and discipline of processes, then discipline of the body, discipline of the breath, discipline of the senses. All of these things result in this samadhi, which is this deep state of single-minded focus. And that focus can penetrate the truth, the reality of what we are. So that Patanjali's yoga is based on Samkhya. Now, Samkhya has penetrated all the philosophies, and Samkhya is a dualistic philosophy. And what Samkhya does is it breaks up the reality into 2 metaphysical principles which never mix. So metaphysical means that which is the moving power behind the physical. So if you look at physics, which is the description of the material world, and now we get right down to the atoms, right, in physics. You get right down into these quarks, and, subatomic particles. That's all physics. It's a way of penetrating the physical world, but it'll only take you so far. You never quite get to, well, what's behind that? What gave rise to it? How does this happen? Physics never answers that. It can only describe what's going on. So metaphysics is the science of understanding what is the motivator that gives rise to these physical things. So that's metaphysics. So the 2 metaphysical principles are prakriti, which is the material world. So Samkhya divides 2 metaphysical principles. The first one, that which gives rise to the material world. Now, I'm not going to go too far into that. The second metaphysical principle is consciousness. Now, what Samkhya says is each being is comprised of those two metaphysical principles that don't mix. Consciousness is separate. It's not part of the material world. And then there's the material world, which is Prakriti. So the body, the mind, thoughts, they're all existing in Prakriti, the material world. Behind that is consciousness. Each of us have different consciousness. We're all have individual consciousness, but that consciousness is not part of the material world. It's eternal. For want of a better word, it's the soul. That's Samkhya. Now that's the principles of material world is carried over into all the Indian philosophies. So this involves the basic elements of matter, which are the gunas, the three qualities of nature, are present in everything in nature and give rise to all the different forms of nature. They're called gunas, the qualities of nature, sattvas, rajas, and tamas. But you don't need to know more on that right now. But if you want to hear the talk, you can go on the website. It's on the talk on Samkhya. So this is what he's referring to here. So this insight as declared in the theory of Samkhya. Now here it has applied. Now here it's applied in arduous practice. So you're going to get that knowledge that you got from Samkhya and put it here into practice. And you're to this determination, Arjuna, you're going to rid yourself of the bondage of karma. What does bondage of karma mean? Okay, that's rhetorical. So the answer is this now. This so-called law of karma. It's not really a law. It's not written down. It's not even proven per se. But good, bad, none escape the law, you know. All actions have consequences. It's easy to see. On a very material level, you know right now, you hit your finger, it's going to hurt, you react to that, you yell out, then there's a thought process. So action, result, action, a result. That's on a very material level. You know, you give money to a friend. The friend benefits, that's obvious. You get benefit by giving, you feel good, that's obvious, the effect of the action. You hit somebody, the person hurts, pain, you cause them pain, obviously the result of the hit. Also, you cause yourself suffering. If you're a person with a conscience, you'll regret it. Oh, I don't feel good about that. That regret may last a long time. On a very, very superficial level, karma is operating quite obviously, cause and effect, but it's operating in a very deep, subtle level. So all actions have results. These results may or may not be understood, and it's unavoidable. So your action and how it's done is going to determine the experiences you're going to have if not in this lifetime, in future ones. So it's a very kind of, and it binds us to be reborn. So you might ask, how can that be? How can you say that the experiencings I'm having in this lifetime and the kind of body I've got, the kind of mind I've got, even the kind of lifestyle I have, like the parents I have, where I was born, the kind of environment I'm living in, you're all saying the results of actions. Well, how can that be? Well, the answer to that is, why should it not be? You can clearly see actions that were done even at the time of your birth are manifesting now. Actions that you may have done as a child can still be manifesting into your old age. So it's very clear that cause and effect is constantly going on. You can see it all around you. What makes you think it stops when you die? Why would we think that? So, you know, the Indian traditions, all of them have karma and rebirth, all of them accept it. Buddhism, Jainism, Patanjali, Samkhya, Vedanta, Jnana, all of these, Mimamsa, all of them accept rebirth and karma. And so you start to realize that actions are really important. And not so much what we do, but how we do it. Because what we do is often determined by also our actions from the past, but also by where we find ourselves. So, for instance, if you're a prison guard or a police officer, or if you're Arjuna about to fight a war, those, you might think, well, if I don't want negative karma and I want to create a good rebirth or get out of the cycle of rebirth, which is really what we're trying to do, stop being reborn, which is also another scary thought for a lot of people, then what am I going to do? The answer is you have to do what you do, but do it in a way that's spiritual. So I remember Kemi asked me a story one time. She said the people living in the area of Fukushima where the radiation leak was, and some people were saying we're going to move away. And Kemi's question was, well, should they stay? Isn't it their karma to stay there? Because they were born there, they live in Fukushima, radiation is there, they're running away from it. They're not really, that's not really the case. It's not the type of action you do, really. Like you can choose, okay, you can make a choice. I'll stay or I'll go. But it's not really those two choices that matter. What matters is what is the expectation and what is the driving force behind it. Now, if you say, there's this example given by Muhammad, the great, the prophet, and Muhammad, a guy asked Muhammad, should I trust in God or should I tie up my camel? In other words, do I just leave it up to God or do I have to do something? And the answer was trust in God and tie up your camel. So the question of leaving Fukushima and going somewhere else might be simply a practical thing to do, because the human body is going to suffer by living there. I won't be, this is not going to be an advantage. If I'm looking at my life as a spiritual endeavor, that's not going to help me to cause the body to suffer. Therefore, I should move. But there's no real motivating force behind it other than that, then that's a spiritual action. So it all depends on your relationship to the mind body and how you're acting in accordance to that. Is that clear? So to stay or go isn't the question. It's what is the motivating force behind the action that counts. Do you see that one? Okay.
What would be an example of a not good motivating force?
Oh, in that case, I'm going to move because I don't like it here. It's too hot, and it's going to be better over there because the breeze is nicer, and I'm going to get a lot of money over there. I'm going to get a better life over there. You see, you want the outcome of the action instead of just purely, this is sensible, I need to go here. And there's no kind of attachment to the outcome of it. And then even in the moving, you can die, right? You can be on the train, you're on the train, there's train accident, you're dead. So those things shouldn't determine your action. Your action has to be based on what's ethical, what's correct, what's sensible. There shouldn't be any harm to others from your action. As if possible, everyone else should benefit, but it shouldn't be selfish. It shouldn't be just to satisfy you. But in this case, it was tying up your camel. It's just a practical thing to do, Okay. All right. So the bondage of karma, yeah. So can we get off the wheel of karma? And should we? Because a lot of people might say, wait a second, how many people really want to not be reborn? It's a really interesting question. When you really ask yourself the question, most of us will say, yeah, I want another go. I want another body. I want to be young again. And, I want to go through all this again. Well, the thing of it is we don't remember that we've been through it countless times, and we've been through it in countless forms, not just human forms. And in this teaching, the best form is the human form. Only in a human form is it possible for you to gain liberation through your own effort. So through your own effort as a human being, you can gain liberation, self-realization, end of suffering, end of rebirth. But most of us really want the opposite. We think, okay, I think it's going to be good this time. I'm really enjoying my life, really. There's all these really good things in it, and I'll have another go. And so we have another go, and then we forget it because we get, we go through other rebirths. We don't remember them. So we get this cycle going. It's a longing. It's a longing to come back. We're hooked by the pleasures of life. And we think, life's pretty good. I want to come back and experience it again. So we're sucked into it over and over and over. And that doesn't mean you should immediately go out and commit suicide, because that's not going to end it either. You're still going to be bound by the karmas. You'll still get another incarnation, and you'll still have to go through certain experiences. So this is why for many people, like, if we force spirituality into our lives, it's not going to work. It has to be something that grows inside of you, and through a moderation in our tendencies and a moderation in our practices that start to create another desire inside of us that's greater than the other desires we already have. So we are desire machines. That's what drives us. I was thinking the other day, on YouTube, they're always popping up surfing videos for me, So, and now, because I'm interested in Bali, they're always showing surfing videos of Bali, and they always got near naked women. So, and I notice, I open YouTube and my eyes immediately go to the near naked women because the senses are so programmed. They pull you immediately there. The desire complex is so strong. So how can you defeat that? How can you possibly break that? And the answer is not to stop desiring, it's to create a stronger desire than that one. Now, the stronger desire is the one for self-realization, for God. If chapter 4 start talking about the idea of God, which is another fascinating subject. And so how do you, this strong desire to understand, to be what I am, to understand what I am and what you are and the universe is, and to have that. Now, how do you create that desire? It can't just come through thinking it. You can't just go, yeah, that sounds great, I want that. It's not like that. It's got to come through gradual process of realization. So when you start practicing and you start to realize that by regulating these other desires, and gradually these new desires start to come into you, which is a desire for something that's not of this material world. So one of the things you have to know is in spiritual practice, that if your spiritual practice is simply one of denying things, I'm not going to do that, that's not spiritual, I'm not going to have that, I'm going to practice this, I'm going to be very strict, all you're going to do is irritate yourself. You'll get angry, you'll get upset, you'll get frustrated, nothing will satisfy you. So spiritual practice is not about denying the material world. It's about creating a desire for something that's much greater than it. So what I'm saying is that we have to start to connect to something that's more meaningful than the material world in order for us to succeed in spiritual practice. So it's a very interesting thought that we cannot just simply cut ourselves off from the material world and say, there I am, I'm spiritual. It's not going to work. So and this is why the Gita is such an amazing text, because all of this is laid out in front of us, and it's all taught to us, and it works. It works on different levels. So yeah, so there's that. And chapter 4 is really great, and we're going to get to that eventually. I promise. Okay. So where are we? We're up to 40. Finally, we're back to where we were, square one. Here in the yoga doctrine of practice, no effort is lost, nor is any loss of progress found. Even a little of this discipline protects one from great danger. The great danger, what's he talking about? To a yoga practitioner, fully cognizant that this lifetime is a tremendous possibility to make spiritual progress. And this lifetime that we have is so precious that we shouldn't waste it. And there's a tremendous danger in wasting it. And the danger is that we're not guaranteed we're going to come back like this, another opportunity. So don't waste it. And any effort you make in spiritual work in this lifetime will not be lost in future lifetimes. You're going to keep it. It's the best investment that you can ever make. So this is what he's telling you. And I have to tell you one other thing too. And this is an important thing about karma. Karma created all of our experiences. All of the things that are happening to us on a day-to-day basis are all our fault. We either earn them or we deserve them. So if, for instance, you are blessed with a life where pretty much you don't suffer, you're well off, you're pain-free, you have support, people love you, you love people, you earned that. That's the fruit of your previous actions. On the other side of it, you work very hard, but nothing works out very well. You do your best, but you never succeed very well, no matter what. Your friend is doing great, but you're not kind of doing well. You earned that. You deserve it. So the great wisdom is not to seek to change what's happening to you, but to embrace what's happening to you and make it a spiritual understanding. I earned this. This is something I have to go through. This is something I have to learn from, rather than respond to. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Perhaps let's take a very easy example. You're driving on the freeway where so many bad karmas occur, right? You're in a car accident. You get out of the car, you're upset, you're fuming, you're angry, blah, 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 blah. You do all kinds of actions which are going to result in further karmas. And you didn't learn the lesson of the car accident. You didn't learn the lesson the car accident was there to teach you. And that lesson, you have to find out what it is, because everything that has happened is happening because of your actions in this lifetime, probably from previous lifetimes. It's there for you to learn from. And if you don't learn it, it's going to come back again. So all experiences in life result in learning. You can see it from the time of a baby. Baby is just a bundle of learning. They slow down the film of the baby, like the mother's talking to the baby, and they slow the film down. You can see the baby trying to mimic the mother. The mother's moving the hand. You see the baby trying to move the hand. Babies are learning machines. You watch a kid walking with the father. The kid walks identical to the father, So they're constantly imprinting. Well, so everything we do results in some sort of learning. Now, if you start to realize that we really are learning machines and we're here to learn, to gain knowledge, that's our true purpose. What kind of knowledge we should gain is the knowledge that's going to set us free from suffering. So if you start to look at this is another way you can spiritualize your life, that everything that's happening to us, you know, is there for that reason. So you may say like, oh, I wanted to go, you know, before the pandemic, Shelley and I were supposed to go to China, right? We were looking forward to it. We enjoyed going to China. We love going there, and, you know, it's nice. And we couldn't go. And we had to shut down our yoga center. And all this stuff came up. And of course, you know, you feel sad, you feel regret. But then you also think, well, you know, there's something I've got to learn from this. So if you flip it around and start to looking at things that way, then life isn't quite as hard. It starts to become a process. Oh, okay, I got to slow down here. I got to think about, what do I need to learn? And then you start to witness and start to experience the experience in a whole nother way. And it also stops you from creating negative karmas through your responses. So that's another teaching of karma. So that the effects of our actions don't bind us anymore. That the effects of our actions, these experiences we're having, start to become vehicles of liberation. So there's karma yoga. So then he goes on, 41. Here there is a single resolute understanding, Arjuna. The thoughts of the irresolute have many branches and are indeed endless. The ignorant ones proclaim this flowery discourse, Arjuna, delighting in the letter of the Veda and saying there is nothing else. So let's look at those two. I'll explain them to you. He's saying that if you look at the way he was teaching him, you know, don't act with pleasure and pain. Look at both things. Be equanimous. Don't act with thoughts of the material outcome. Practice karma yoga, which he explains in chapter 3. Then you're going to have a single-mindedness. Your mind becomes very focused because you have one thought process, really. So from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, which is almost impossible, there's only one thought process. You know, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. So that's what I am. I'm not this physical being spiritual. I'm a spiritual being, spiritual consciousness, having a physical experience. That's the thought process. That's what I am, not the other way around. Now, he's saying that that's a one single-minded, resolute thought process. But other people's thought processes are just scattered everywhere. And he said, the thoughts of the irresolute, the ones who aren't resolute in their action, have many branches and are endless. There's no end to it. Once you go down that road of I am the mind body, I'm going to satisfy the mind body with my, you know, sensual pleasures, whatnot. That's how I act. I want power. I want fame. I want fortune. I want. It's all about me. It's endless. It never stops. Mm-hmm. You can never satisfy desire by satisfying desire. You want an ice cream, you eat an ice cream. That desire comes back again. It's like putting wood on a fire. You know, fire the more you try to satisfy desires by satisfying desires, the more ineffective it'll be. It's just endless. So these desires, you die full of them. You're a bag of them, of desires. And those desires don't go away. So in the next lifetime, they come back again. They manifest. It's once you understand Samkhya, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And that's in the other talk. I don't want to go too much in that direction right now. So it was, so the ignorant ones proclaim this flowery discourse, delighting in the letter of the Veda and saying there's nothing else. So this gets down to what I said before, how when you look at the Vedas, the the religious texts of ancient India, they're broken up into basically two sections. One section is how to get material happiness, how to get to heaven, how to have a better rebirth, how to be successful in this lifetime, how to have health. You know, people come to yoga, it's always some material thing. I want health, I want relaxation, I want. It's all about me, right? So we do things. So there's part of religion, and at the time of Arjuna, at the time of the period of time when this was written, that this was the time where a Vedic sacrifice. You know, if you go to Bali, they still practice the really old religion of ancient India where they do animal sacrifice. And, you know, they even would drink blood and all kinds of things, you know, rituals, fire rituals, chanting, you know, all these things that are in Hinduism and are in all religions, really, when you look at it. These things you do, these rituals you perform to gain some sort of material benefit in your life. Now, that's in religion. There's no denying it. You know, I want to be born in heaven. So you have a whole section of religion based on that. Now you've got the other side of religion, which is very, very deeply raised up in the Upanishads, which is the spiritual side of the Vedic traditions, that are really what the Bhagavad Gita is about, knowing who you are and how you get out of the cycle of karma, liberate yourself from suffering. Not really about satisfying your material self. So this is what he's talking about, that the irresolute, the ones whose minds are being pulled all over the place by desires and all that, and have these religious practices that are really only based on getting something. For me, he said, don't go there. I'm teaching you the real deal. Stick with this. So he's speaking out against the religious practices of the time, much like the Buddha did. So this is very much a text of its day, and it has to be understood in that context. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 45. Wait.
43.
Oh yeah. Okay, 43, sorry. Full of desires, intent on heaven. They offer rebirth as the fruit of action and are addicted to many specific rites aimed at the goal of enjoyment and power. So that's pretty much what I just spoke about, right? Then next one, to those, the ignorant ones, attached to enjoyment and power, whose thought is stolen away by this kind of talk, resolute insight in meditation is not granted. So I remember years ago, Prashant was talking about it, and someone asked him, you know, it's interesting when you go to India and you see people meditating, and it's pretty common. You know, like in the yoga center, there would be this guy that would come there during the practice times, and he would sit for a couple of hours, quite common, just sit very still, meditating for 2 hours. And so it's common in India, or it was. Anyhow, and the Prashant said that one of the students came to him and said, you know, when I sit to meditate, my mind is very disturbed. I can't focus. I can't have one thought process. It's always disturbed. And Prashant's answer was, because 23 hours of the day, you're satisfying your desires, you're living in a world of material importance, and then suddenly you try to turn yourself inward and be spiritual. It's not going to happen. Because the mind is not like that. Your intellect, your buddhi, this is samkhya, your intellect can say, I want to get up at 5 a.m. every day and do pranayama, and I'm going to do that. Right? Then 5 a.m., the alarm rings. What happens? The senses and the mind go, oh, no. We're not going to do that. We didn't sign up for that. So you understand what I'm saying? That in order to create any meaningful spiritual practice, the mind has to be brought into the correct state first. And this knowledge that's given in the Gita helps us to purify the mind and make it not a task for it to get up and practice, but a delight. That it's something that you want in every cell of your body, and you're not fighting against it at all. It's not something that's imposed. It's something that grows inside of you. So our spiritual practices have to plant seeds, and we have to nourish them so that it's no longer a discipline that is something we think we're missing out. Oh, you know, I really want to go to the baseball game, but I've got to do my yoga. It's going to be, I want so much to do my yoga. The giving up other things is not a problem. So you've got to flip it around, that the desire for spiritual progress is so much stronger than any other desire. So you don't feel like you're missing out. Okay, so I know we're going very slowly, but it is what it is. So just now, the Vedas are such that their scope is confined into three qualities. Be free of these three qualities, Arjuna. Indifferent towards the pairs of opposite, eternally fixed in truth, free from thoughts of acquisition and comfort, and possessed of the self. That is so full. So I'm just going to end with this last one, if you don't mind. The Vedas. So do you all know what the Vedas are? The Vedic culture? Okay, yeah. So what happened is there were a group of people that came into northern India, and they were called the Aryans. Now, we're not talking about the Aryans in the sense of Nazi Germany. They're an ethnic group, and they came in to northern India at a time and settled in the Indus Valley. And this is where the word India and Hindu comes from, Hindu. So they were called the Vedic cultures. So Veda means knowledge. So they came in and they settled in this Indus Valley. And the language Sanskrit came out of their language, and it went out through the Indian subcontinent. And all the languages in India originate from Sanskrit, that language, except for one, which is the language in Tamil Nadu, in the very south of India. They speak the old language. So this culture, this Vedic culture, intersected with the practices and of the people that existed at that time. I don't know the words for it, but the practices they had there, like Shiva, for instance, the god of yoga, they encountered these aesthetic practitioners who lived in forests and did all these kind of weird spiritual practices. So that all got incorporated, and these Vedas are the knowledge that was recorded by this culture. And these Vedas are, for want of a better word, religious texts. And as I said, they're divided into two sections. And so one of them is all about rites and rituals to gain benefits in this life and the next life. And the other one is the Upanishads, which is the spiritual, truly deeply spiritual teachings about what we are, who we are, and what is the nature of reality. So it has two strands. So at this time, Krishna is later on, he'll explain that he's here to reestablish this ancient knowledge, which has been lost because this other wing of Vedic knowledge has got such control over people. You know, they're in their world, they're bound in their desires, they're gaining glory, they're gaining money, they're gaining stuff for themselves. And not only that, they want a good rebirth and they want health and happiness, and they're going to use religion for that purpose. So it was a decline of spirituality at the time of this teaching. And it's one of the reasons that the Gita is there, to reestablish this ancient knowledge. So the Vedas are such that their scope is confined to the three qualities. So he's saying this material side of the Vedas is confined to the three qualities of nature, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, which are the underlying metaphysical principles of all matter. So he's saying that this teaching is really only about that. It doesn't deal with the true nature of spirituality. It only deals with this material world and its qualities. So he's warning him, so he says, be free of that. Be indifferent between the pairs of opposites, the dandwanas that Patanjali talks about, the like and dislike, the good and bad, the want, the don't want. We experience life that way in these dualities. This is good, this is bad, I like it, I don't want it. This is what we find ourselves in, these dualities. So he says, don't go there either. Don't make that your life. Be eternally fixed in truth. Get this one pointed focus of what you are, what you want, how you're going to achieve it. What you are, consciousness, Satchitananda. What you want, I want that knowledge. How am I going to achieve it? Karma yoga. Jnana yoga, the knowledge of the self. Karma yoga, the purification of the mind. Patanjali's yoga, that all gets explained later. Free from thoughts of acquisition. The mind is so about getting stuff and acquiring stuff and keeping stuff, that be free of that. Don't let that dominate your action. Don't make that your movement, your main modus operandi, stuff. And comfort. I only want to be comfortable. I'm only doing things so I can be comfortable in life. It's a big mistake because firstly, it's impossible. And it's such a waste of energy. And then finally, and be possessed of the self, capital S, not the small s, but the capital S. So make your life the attempt to manifest the divinity within you. That's what Vivekananda said. Our lives should be about manifesting the divinity within us. Now that sounds like a tall order, and you may or may not resonate with it at this time. But once you start to step on the path, at whatever level we do, it can be simply at a very, very simple level. I'm going to start to look at the world like this for a while and see what happens. See what knowledge comes to me. That small step is going to change everything. Once you step on the path, it's inevitable that your path will go much quicker. So to hear the teaching and to put it into practice. So there's three aspects in Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, chapter 2. Three actors, samana. First is hear the teaching. So we have to look to find someone who will teach us. And a lot of people, they go to a teacher, they say, oh, I'm looking for a spiritual teacher. And they go to India or they hunt teachers, people hunt, they go to this teacher, this teacher, this teacher, they're stupid. Basically what they're saying is, none of these teachers are good enough for me. That's nonsense. That whatever you can get, you should go for it. So you're stuck right here with me for this moment. So whatever you can get from me, get it. And we get the teacher we deserve, So the teachers are there. So you take the teaching and then manana, think about it. Start to intellectualize it. Look at it around you, see if you can make sense of it, see if you can accept it. Then meditate on it, sit with it, sit quietly, sit still. Krishna later on is going to teach you how to do that. And this is the process of Jnana Yoga. Those people who through their spiritual practices have come into this incarnation ready for enlightenment will only have to hear the teaching and be enlightened. And there's numerous cases of that happening, where all they did was the teacher just said, Tat Sam Asi, you that thou art, enlightened immediately. Why? Because the spiritual practices, the mind is so ready that that's all it took. Now for us, it mightn't happen. Now we have to think about it more, okay? Intellectualize it, see it in life, start to understand it better, then meditate on it. Meditation doesn't work for a lot of us. Mind's too scattered, distracted, impure. What to do? Patanjali's yoga. Practice Patanjali's yoga to calm the mind, still the mind, focus the mind so it can realize what we truly are, which is consciousness. That doesn't work for some of us. Cannot keep still, cannot meditate, cannot do pranayama. What to do? Karma yoga. The yoga of action to purify the mind, make it ready for deeper knowledge. So it's all coming. You just have to be a little patient. Okay, so thanks. Are there any questions before we finish? I don't necessarily have to go through it now, but maybe next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you do have a question, just let me know, and you should ask questions. If your intellect has any doubt, if you say to me, you know what, that just doesn't sound right, good. Because that's what the whole of Bhagavad Gita Arjuna is doing the whole time. He just keeps coming back. But you said this, but what about this? You have to cleanse all of the intellect. So that you can accept it intellectually. So that makes it so much more possible for you to succeed. All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. It was so wonderful to see you all. And see you next time. And I'll put the video on the YouTube. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ray.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. Bye, Kemi. Bye, Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you.